Hello, Packers fans. Happy game day. Welcome into an all-new game day edition, preview edition, pregame edition of the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack a Day Podcast. You're the absolute best for being here. I'm pretty geeked up about this game. Packers, 49ers. I know all the injury stuff. And yes, since we talked last, just a few things have happened from an update standpoint, primarily on the San Francisco 49ers side. We'll get to that in just a moment. Let's start with the Packers side of things. When the injury report came out, we already knew, right, that Jair Alexander and Edgerrin Cooper were going to be out. We heard that. Well, basically, we got the report from Matt Schneidman that Jair wasn't going to be back anytime soon. And then we got the word from Matt LaFleur on Friday that Edgerrin Cooper was going to be out in this game. The only thing we really gleaned from the injury report at all is that Colby Wooden is going to be questionable for this game. No other updates as of Saturday. So all we know really going into this one, the only question mark from an injury standpoint is whether or not Colby Wooden will be able to go. From a 49ers standpoint, however, some massive updates that happened at the end of the day on Friday. Remember, I recorded Saturday's episode just a little bit before that news came out, unfortunately, but I said we'd cover it all here today. I mean, we really don't probably even need to cover it all that much. Two massive injuries that are going to be affecting the 49ers in a huge way. And clearly it starts with their starting quarterback, right? When you've got Brock Purdy out of this game and you have to go to Brandon Allen, that's a big step back. And we'll talk about why it's not, just easy to take this game for granted or anything like that. Like, you're going to have to go out and still win this game. But the difference between, in my opinion, a very good quarterback in Brock Purdy and a journeyman backup in Brandon Allen is significant in this one. And then just right up there on the defensive side of the ball. If the sort of MVP of the offense is Brock Purdy, the guy that makes it all go, on defense, it's Nick Bosa. They lose their biggest defensive impact player. The difference between Bosa on the field and off the field from a pass rush standpoint, from a DVOA standpoint, from all of it is just, it's like almost not, no ability to overcome it. Right. And those are two of like the biggest injuries you could possibly have in this game for the 49ers. So both of them will be out. That was reported late on Friday, or a little bit later on Friday, I should say. And again, it's going to have a massive impact on this game. Those are not the only injuries. Tatum Bethune, out. Jacob Cowing, out. Kevin Givens, out. Travarius Ward, out. And then questionable is John Feliciano and Trent Williams. Now, a couple updates there. John Feliciano, if you remember, he's questionable, journeyman offensive lineman depth piece for San Fran, but he's actually on injured reserve. So in order for him to play, they would have had to have activated him and put him on the active roster. They did not do that. So while he was questionable, he cannot play in this game because they did not activate him. As far as Trent Williams goes, Adam Schefter did report at the very early hour, I think it was either late on Saturday or very early on Sunday, that the 49ers are optimistic that Trent Williams will be able to play. He will test his ankle pregame and see how it feels, and we'll see if he can go from there. But they do, it sounds like, have some level of optimism, and understandably so. We've talked about this all week of how Trent Williams usually does a little Houdini act and all this stuff that he gets injured throughout the course of the week. He finds a way to play through it, and then when he plays through it, he still looks absolutely dominant. So we'll see. It sounds like they're again optimistic that Trent's going to go. My expectation is that Trent will go because he's done this so many times in the past, but that will be probably from an inactive standpoint, the biggest name to keep an eye on. Really the one big question remaining for either side. Colby Wooden is a small question for Green Bay, but Trent Williams is a massive question for San Francisco. Now, from a transaction standpoint on Saturday, Green Bay made no roster moves. They didn't add a player to the 53-man roster. Remember, they have a spot open, and they did not elevate anyone from the practice squad to the active roster either. So they are going with their roster as is. The 49ers, again, they did not activate John Feliciano. They put Tatum Bethune on injured reserve. They put Tayshaun Gibson, the longtime NFL safety, on their 53-man roster, and then they elevated Jalen Graham, a linebacker, and Nick McLeod, a corner. Now, I mentioned the Trent Williams news, so this is, clearly they think he's going to play, but if you were looking for, they didn't activate an offensive lineman, so clearly, Trent's going to play, it's not quite that simple. They do have 9 offensive linemen on their active roster. if Trent can't go, they would still have 8. And usually most teams only go with 8 offensive linemen active on game day. So they can still deactivate Trent Williams and still have their 8. If they would have only had 8 on the roster and Trent Williams is one of them, then I would have said, yeah, he's playing, because they're not going to just go with 7 offensive linemen into a game. But it's not a tell based on the fact that they didn't call up anyone to the active roster on the offensive line. So that's still going to be the big question mark going into Sunday. But I'll say it one more time, Adam Schefter reports that the 49ers are optimistic about that. As far as the inactives go, from a Packers standpoint, this should be one of the more straightforward inactive reports for the Packers that we have seen. There's really only one question mark. So Jaire Alexander and Edgerrin Cooper are both going to be out. Those will be 2 of the inactives. And I should note as well, Green Bay only has a 52-man roster right now, so they only need to deactivate 4 players. And again, Jaire and Cooper we know are locks to be deactivated. Travis Glover is pretty much a lock. He's deactivated every week. He's a red shirt. They don't need the extra offensive lineman. That one's easy. And then the other one comes down to one of 2 players, in my opinion. Kitano Ladapo, who also is basically in a red shirt season and almost is always deactivated, or Colby Wooden. If Colby Wooden can't play, then I would expect Kitano Ladapo to be up. Maybe they can utilize him on special teams a little bit. Maybe you could even do a little bit of nickel linebacker stuff, because they only have 4 linebackers active on the roster. And then, if it is, in fact, Colby Wooden can't go, then he's an easy deactivate, right? Then it's probably just Travis Glover as the only active player, only healthy player that would be inactive for this game. Speaking of that linebacker position really quick, they did not elevate a linebacker for this game. I thought Jamin Davis, there'd be a decent chance that he would either get added to the 53 or elevated from the practice squad just to give them an extra body. And quite frankly, just somebody who can sort of mirror some of the movements and athletic ability that Edgerrin Cooper has. We've seen them like to bring some of those blitzes and do some things with the athleticism of Edgerrin Cooper. Now, Jamin Davis might not quite be in that Edgerrin Cooper category because Cooper's a freak, but Jamin Davis is pretty freaky himself. He's a great athlete. So I kind of thought that'd be an apples to apples kind of change out. I'm not saying they would have needed to play him, but it would have given them another option. But that leaves only 4 active linebackers for this game. Now, you have Eric Wilson, Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie. Those 3 are probably going to play all the snaps at linebacker, right? But if there's any injury, anything, Tyron Hopper's the next guy up. And maybe, just maybe we see a little bit of Tyron Hopper. I doubt it, quite frankly, just based on what we've kind of heard this week. But we'll see. We'll see. He's the 4th guy, so it's not impossible. You wouldn't think that he could maybe get some playing time, but I would still expect it to be on special teams. And like I said, maybe there's a small package for Tyron Hopper in this one, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. All right, that brings us to our Luigi's Pizza player of the game, who we're going to be watching for in this one. For me, I'm watching Carrington Valentine, and there's a multitude of reasons for this. Number one, yes, the 49ers have Brandon Allen in, right? Like, he's their backup quarterback, but they still have 3 very talented wide receivers in Deebo Samuel, in Juwan Jennings, and then in their rookie first-round pick, Ricky Pearsall, not to mention George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey, right? They have weapons. And those weapons are going to do everything they can to get open to give Brandon Allen easy reads and easy decisions. To me, I want to see Carrington Valentine, who took over for Eric Stokes last week. He's probably going to be the starter again. I want to see him own that position. Whoever he's matched up against, whether it be Pearsall or Jennings, probably a lot of those 2. I want to see him hold his own. I want to see him have a big game, contain those players. But also, if Jaire is out for maybe even the season or whatever it ends up being, right? They're going to need Carrington Valentine to step up in a significant way. Like, this just can't be potential. This just can't be like, oh, he's playing okay. Like, he needs to step up and be a good, legitimate starter. And they're going against a backup. Carrington Valentine has a ability to, jump a route here and there. Maybe he can get his hands on a football, but I'm going to be watching for Carrington Valentine, not only in this game, because I think he's going to be really important with some of those matchups, but also to see, can he replace Jaire Alexander? Can he be the guy? Can he be somebody that steps up in the absence of a player? You're going to need some of that with the injuries that Green Bay has. Carrington Valentine would go a long way in starting to cover for some of the issues that you have right now because Jaire Alexander is injured. So my Luigi's Pizza player to watch in this game is Carrington Valentine. Also, I cannot tell you enough positive things about my time working with Habish, and Ratier already. Just like the Packers have an all-pro lineup on the field, the Habish Law Firm has an all-pro team in the courtroom. If you've been injured, let the attorneys at Habish be your legal linebackers, ready to back your claim and get you the compensation you deserve. When you call Habish, you'll talk to a lawyer directly. Just give them a call at 800-242-2874 or 800-2HABISH. You can also visit their website at habish.com. Habish, and Rotier, national reputation, hometown service. All right, now let's get to our keys to the game. Number one, all right, my number one key to this game, do not overlook these San Francisco 49ers. Period, end of story. All right, go back to 2018, right? 2018, some of you may remember this game. CJ Beathard and the 49ers came into Lambeau. Now, the Packers won that game 33-30 after an epic final drive and a comeback. The 49ers were up 30-23 in the fourth quarter in that game. Packers put a touchdown drive together. Then at the end, Rodgers puts an awesome drive together to go get the game-winning field goal. But that was right out, down until the wire. And you were not expecting the CJ Beathard team to come in and give Green Bay a run for their money, yet here they were. And again, basically the 49ers had that lead in the fourth quarter. And that was, you're going in, you're like, oh, backup quarterback, and Packers are going to take care of business. It was not that at all. Now, Green Bay won, but it was a tight one down until the end. 2010, Troy Smith, 49ers backup quarterback, big underdogs in that game. It was a 1-point game at halftime. Now, the Packers pulled away in that one, 34-16, but it was a 5-point game with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. So again, don't take these for granted. Don't take the 49ers for granted. They've been a thorn in your side. Oh, how about the 2019 NFC Championship game? Now, no backup quarterback in this one, right? But Jimmy Garoppolo threw 8 times, 6 completions on 8 attempts for 77 yards. And the 49ers still put up 37 points in that game because Green Bay couldn't stop the running game. Kyle Shanahan will have a plan. This offense is still chock full of talent. George Kittle's going to play in this one. Christian McCaffrey's going to play. They've got all those great receivers we talked about earlier. They have Kyle Juszczyk at fullback. They have all the weapons that Kyle Shanahan needs. And it's not that different, quite frankly, than the Bears last week, right? Now, Caleb Williams is a much more talented quarterback than Brandon Allen. But Caleb Williams, as a rookie year one, just sort of starting to figure things out, I'm not saying he's like a backup caliber quarterback or anything like that, but this is a young and experienced quarterback that, is not anywhere near the peak of his powers or what he's going to be eventually or down the line. And the Packers allowed, with all those Bears weapons, to Caleb Williams, the rookie, to kind of take them down the field every single time. If Caleb Williams and that Bears offense can do it, I guarantee you that there's going to be an ability for Brandon Allen and this 49ers offense to do it. If Brandon Allen can just play anywhere near what Caleb Williams did a week ago, they're going to put up points in this game. So do not take the 49ers for granted. And number 2 on my list, don't take Brandon Allen for granted. 29 of 37, 371 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions on the road in a win against Houston in 2020. That was a Brandon Allen stat line. 29 of 37, 371, 2 touchdowns. Now, just about every single one of his other starts or playing time opportunities has not gone well at all. Very poor completion percentage, interceptions, all of it. He's been a journeyman for a reason. But he has shown the ability to go on the road in Houston 2020, 29 of 37, 371 yards, 2 touchdowns. He can put up a big game. And again, they're going to have some mismatches for the 49ers in the secondary where their wide receivers, I think, can win against Green Bay's secondary. Green Bay's pass rush is non-existent right now. So this is going to be an issue if Green Bay can't get home and they can't cover. I don't care who's at quarterback. So again, just because Brandon Allen's out there and you think you got the advantage, which you do, you have to go out and still earn it. You have to still go take it. And if you don't, Brandon Allen will pull like we talked about yesterday, Jason Garrett, when the Cowboys were the Packers' biggest thorn in their side and Green Bay couldn't get over the hump. Jason Garrett on Thanksgiving, you finally feel like you're going to get over it. And then Jason Garrett and the Cowboys still beat Green Bay. So sometimes teams have your number. San Francisco is still going to have confidence in this one. Do not overlook them. Do not overlook Brandon Allen. Number 3, this one doesn't need to be said, but I'm going to say it anyway. You have to sort of find a way to contain Christian McCaffrey. Now, that is easier said than done. You're probably not going to do it. He's a super talented player, but you've got to find a way to contain him. This cannot be that championship game, going back to 2019. If you allow Christian McCaffrey in this running game to get going, Jordan Mason's right there too. He's a fantastic runner. Kyle Shanahan's shown he doesn't feel like he has to throw the ball a ton. He'll just run it right down your throat. And there were some pitch plays last week from Chicago that worked really well that I see San Francisco very much trying to emulate in this one. So Green Bay's going to have to be ready, and they're going to have to find a way to not stop Christian McCaffrey. He's going to get his, but contain him as best as possible, because you don't want this game going just through the run game for San Fran. You got to be strong. With no Adrian Cooper, right? No Jair Alexander. There's going to be some holes on this defense that doesn't necessarily relate to run defense, at least especially with Jair Alexander, but still got to find a way to contain him to the best of your ability. And with that in mind, number 4 is tackle, rally to the football, tackle, rally to the football, tackle, rally to the football, just over and over. Just put it in your heads. You have to rally to everything, and you have to be a really good tackling team in this game, taking good angles. This is the offense built around run after the catch. Get the ball out of the quarterback's hands, let the weapons do the heavy lifting. And you can only imagine that with Brandon Allen at quarterback, that's going to be what they are focusing on, to try to get it out of his hands and to try to get it in the hands of the playmakers. And the playmakers they have, right? Like Deebo Samuel is a run after the catch dude. George Kittle, run after the catch dude. Christian McCaffrey, run after the catch. Juwan Jennings, run after the catch. Kyle Juszczyk, run after the catch. They will own you with rack yards if you let them. So it is paramount that the Packers in this game tackle well, take good angles to the football, and everyone needs to rally to it, because the 49ers are going to make you miss. They're going to run through tackles, and that next guy needs to be there to immediately get you down. Otherwise, it's going to be a long day. And it's going to be one of those frustrating games where, like, hey, maybe Green Bay found a way to win at the end, but the 49ers put up way too much points, or too many points, and you weren't hoping for that, right? You're hoping for a better defensive performance. If they can't tackle, they can't rally to the football, it's probably going to be a rough defensive performance for Green Bay. Number 5, attack our good old friend DAndre Campbell. He's been the liability in the middle of the 49ers defense. I mean, this is not a hard one to IQ either, right? Or ID, I should say. ID. You're playing right next to Fred Warner. Fred Warner, very good. DAndre Campbell, not so much. So if you're going to have the opportunity to attack one of those guys, maybe stay away from the All-Pro and go after the guy that's on the last legs of his career. And I do think you can attack him in the run game, play action, that you can throw at him. I think this could be a big Tucker Kraft day if he can get matchups there. But you got to stay away from Fred Warner. You got to attack DAndre Campbell. But I do think he is susceptible, and I do think he is somebody that you can look to and where he's lined up and how you can take advantage of him, sincerely. And I know he was going to go to San Fran, and it was going to be exactly what he's looking for. It has not been that way so far in San Francisco for DAndre Campbell, and fans are ready to move on from DAndre Campbell sooner rather than later in San Fran. Number 6, limit the big plays. Now, I don't want to see a full bend but don't break defense against Brandon Allen. I don't need to see a billion paper cuts again. I don't need to see the Packers offense just standing on the sidelines because Green Bay can't get off the field. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm not saying go full two high safeties and Joe Barry the hell out of this thing. But to an extent, you do want to make them go the length of the field and see if Brandon Allen, can actually get them to the promised land and make enough plays in order to do that. And if he can't, then you feel really good about that design. Now, I'm going to go into my next one right away because it's related. That's number 7. Keep Xavier McKinney as your primary deep safety in this one. I'm not saying you can't switch it up every once in a while, but he's kind of the guy I want deep. And that's because I want the corners being able to come up and play these wide receivers and tight ends, right? I want them to be able to come up and do that. But I want Xavier McKinney to be the guy that if somebody gets open deep or if they're going to take those chances deep, Xavier McKinney is going to be the one controlling the back end. And I know he had a poor tackle play on DeAndre Swift this past week. I still trust him back there as the last line of defense. Guarantee that's not going to happen again to McKinney. And if McCaffrey does get through that first line, that first wave, I want Xavier McKinney to be able to be there. So I would say Xavier McKinney, keep him in the post as that back safety for a great majority of this game. Number 8, be creative with Rashawn Gary. Now, I think number 1, if Trent Williams for some reason cannot go, you want to get Rashawn Gary over on that side, rushing against their backup offensive tackle as much as possible. If not, then Colton McKivitz looks probably like the better option for Rashawn. And then, or you could kind of move him around a little bit, as we've seen on some third downs, in games from Jeff Hafley. So I'd love to see a little bit more of a creative approach and get him in some one-on-ones that he can win, rather than just trying to go up against Trent Williams the entirety of the game, which is probably not going to work for anyone. So be creative and be aware of who's out there. And if it's not Trent Williams, man, get Rashawn Gary on that spot and work over that backup offensive lineman. Number 9, special teams. I do think special teams can play a big role. Some old friends, Pat O'Donnell, the punter for San Francisco, Tabor Pepper is their long snapper. He's a former Packer. And then Jake Moody is their field goal kicker. I think Green Bay has the advantage here. I think the Packers have the better punter, the better kicker. You do need to be aware of Isaac Gorendo, the running back. He is a dangerous returner, but so can Keyshawn Nixon, right? So I think special teams advantage to me in this one is Green Bay. It's not by much, but the team with the better field position set up by their special teams. If there's any missed kicks, missed field goals or anything, it could play a major factor. So I do think special teams going to play a role in this game. And would it be the first time we've seen special teams have a big role at the end of a game against San Francisco, right? So we can't have a repeat of that. Green Bay's going to have to be much better on teams than they were on that particular day. Number 10, third and fourth down efficiency, something that Green Bay has not been doing a very good job with, specifically this past week against Chicago, both on offense or on defense. You can't just live on big plays. You've got to convert your third and fourth downs on offense. And defensively, you got to get off the field. Just have to. Even go back to 3rd and 19 last week for Chicago, and they end up picking the play up on fourth down a couple plays later, right? So Green Bay's got to find a way to be more efficient in that regard. And they got to get, in this case, the 49ers off the field. And if not, it's going to be a long day. And I don't care if it's Brandon Allen or not. If you can't get off the field on 3rd and 4th down, they're going to keep that drive going. They're going to put points on the board. And that's not what Green Bay wants. Green Bay wants their offense on the field, dominating time of possession, controlling the clock, and then, really doing one of the other things. I'll skip to this one. It's really the most important one, the red zone offense. Both of these teams have been brutal in the red zone. I think both teams are going to be able to move the ball in this game. So this one, even though, again, it is backup QB and an offense that's going to be a little bit behind the 8 ball with no Brock Purdy, whichever team can be better in the red zone, I think gets the job done. Because I think, again, both these teams are going to move the ball in some capacity. Both of them are very high-powered offenses. And we've seen, look at Green Bay with Malik Willis, right? They found ways to be successful. I guarantee Kyle Shanahan's scheming things up for Brandon Allen. It's not the same type of quarterback. I get that. But guarantee you they're going to say, hey, Green Bay's won with Malik Willis. We'll win with Brandon Allen. They're going to be creative. They're going to try to come into Green Bay and pick up that win. And then last but not least, show you can play a complete game of football. This is one you have to win, right? This is not one that you can just let slip out of your fingertips. Give San Francisco life and really take a major hit against a 49ers team that's reeling and is completely banged up. Cannot lose this game. I don't think this is a trap game or anything like that. It's just, don't take it for granted. Play your best football and get out of there with a hopefully convincing victory over the 49ers. That's what I want. I want a convincing victory. And maybe it's maybe it ends up a little closer at the end by a garbage time touchdown or something like that. That I don't care about. I want to go into the fourth quarter feeling like Green Bay's got this relatively easily. Well, that's a 30-10 lead. And again, maybe they go on a 10-0 run in the fourth or something and make it semi-interesting. That's fine. They still dominated that game, right? So I want to see a complete game of football from Green Bay. Just again, starting to show us that there is progress, there is improvement, and just proof of concept that they can go out there and play a 60-minute game of football and show what they're capable of. That's what I really want to see in this game. My prediction, Packers 30, 49ers 20. I'm really still looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be a fun game. I do think the Packers pick up the W, and I'm excited to talk to you guys about it all week this week. And then, of course, we've got a Thursday Dolphins game as well, which is going to be a ton of fun. But right now, we're all locked in and focused on Packers 49ers. We don't need to look ahead. We take it one game at a time right here on Pack-A-Day, and we're going to be watching this 49ers game with great excitement and hopefully picking up that win for the Packers. Reminder, I'll be doing live pre- and post-game shows on Sunday. I'm going to be going live at 11 a.m. or either 10:30 or 11 a.m. Right now, it's tentatively set for 10:30. Keep an eye on it. I may go 11. We'll see, but we're going to take that one step at a time based on a couple logistics things I've got going on. And then after the game, depending on when I can get home, will either be 8:30 or 9. So keep an eye on that as well. Right now, I'm planning for 8:30 p.m. Central Time. But if it takes me a little bit longer to get out of Lambeau and everything like that after the game, it may be closer to 9 o'clock. So I'll keep you posted on that as well. But right now, set for 8:30 p.m. Central Time. All right, shout out to our Hall of Fame and All-Pro members, Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Brandon Paletta, Jennifer Wright, Boom Handle, Donald Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Alex Swanger, Arnoldo Espinoza, Peter Rataka, SoCal Pack, Jay Zimmerman, B. Brown, Puerto Rican Packer, and Dan Gassford. Enjoy the game day, everyone. I will see you tomorrow here to break it all down, and of course in the pre- and post-game shows as well. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.